So I'm Leslie Maltby. Good? Okay, thank you for that feedback. So I'm Leslie Maltby, the Senior Manager Customer Experience for Verizon, focused on public sector. And at heart, I am a Jersey girl. So what does that mean? That means, of course, that I do not pump my own gas. And when I go to the local gas station right by my house, I hear about the weather while he's pumping my gas. I fix my phone to make sure it's charged. It's a great experience. When I travel, of course, I pump my own gas, and they ask me questions. Do I want a car wash? What is your zip code? Do I have a credit or debit card? All things that have no value to me. Now, ultimately, what I would love is if they knew that I travel typically on Tuesdays. I like to fill up my gas tank when it's about a quarter full. And why on Sunday or Monday can't I just get a little text they want to come magically in the middle of the night and go fill my tank up? And I walk out on 6:30 on Tuesday morning and I'm ready to go on my trip wherever I'm going. So a silly little analogy of what great customer experience is, very personalized versus self-service or having outreach and artificial intelligence to serve people. So silly experience, but we know in the public sector, it's very, very different, right? People are not interacting with the government for silly things like pumping your own gas. It's very important. Veterans experiences, and we're going to hear a lot from a lot of agencies that are doing very important things. People are not contacting the government because they have trivial things to do. They have other things going on in their life. So from public sector, you have to have a very agile experience because there's always lots of things going on in the media, in the world going on that are going to affect it. But also you have to be very, very cognizant about what you're doing with your customers' data. So you want to always be instilling trust in the government. Every experience determines how a citizen is going to continue to interact with an agency and how they're going to feel about customer experience. It's really the same between citizens in their public life and in consumers, how they're viewing customer experience. They always want a personalized customer experience. They want it to be consistent across all channels. They want it to be contextual, and they want it to be immediate, of course. And the difference between, on the consumer side, that's easier to do. I think some people, Matt, you brought it up, right? There's a lot less bars of entry for them to deliver that kind of experience on a private sector, right? They also don't have to deliver customer experience for all, right? They can pick and choose who their customers are. So it's a lot harder to do in the public sector, although no matter what, that is what consumers are going to expect from the public sector. Okay, one of these areas is security, right? The call center, for example, is still one of the main areas that is open to fraud. Here's the statistics. 1 out of 638 calls into a call center is fraudulent. And, certain sectors like financial services spends a lot of money on protecting from fraud. This spending has not necessarily been the same in government, and it is preventing a lot of programs that a lot of people would like to do because the security isn't necessarily there. Okay, so let's look at a couple different trends that are going on in the private sector and how does it apply to the public sector. So one of the things going on is retail. So government is not a retailer, but it does have a lot of brick and mortar locations. They're trying to deliver services on a very local level. And in retail, we've seen, we have Amazon, the big e-retailer that does a fantastic job, but they're constantly trying to say, what's that last bit of why are people still going into stores, and how can we help get over that, right? They have Zappos where they make it easy to return, they do things like that, but also they're doing same-day delivery, pick up at a locker, all those things that people like about a retailer to have that immediacy. On the other hand, you have your brick and mortar, your Walmarts, your Walgreens, Best Buy. There's a lot of retailers that are getting very, very successful with shop at home, do all the things you want, relaxing on your couch, talk it over with your family, then go into the store to pick it up so you have that immediate purchase. So how does that relate to the government? Well, there are digital, which is going to do a terrific job, but there's still going to be at times people need to go into an office or talk to someone. So how can you get that digital experience to go further and further so the last little bit is just in the office or at a call center? Things like if you have an emergency passport that you have to get, can you do part of that application online and just walk in to pick up the passport instead of going in there to do the whole application? Things like the Postal Service, which does a terrific job with automated services. They have lots of great kiosks, self-service that work fantastically. How can they combine what you can do online with what you can do in the office? Okay, from a localization and personalization, one of the things I think is very interesting that's going on is really healthcare, which is a primary function of the government. So think about if you have some kind of ailment, of course they're going to recommend that you modify your diet, give you specific exercise goals, sleep goals, things like that. And it can be very overwhelming for a citizen to try, or a patient to try and meet all the multitude of things that they have to do to improve their health. So things like at the University of California, San Diego, they're doing some research into looking at wearables. And can they take wearables and determine specifically for each individual patient what would lower their blood pressure? So one of the people in the study found that it was very specific, like if they slept 40 minutes more per week, they lowered their blood pressure 15%. For someone else, it was a specific diet change. Instead of saying improve your diet and giving you the whole litany of things that you should do, give very, very specific help. And these are more devices and artificial intelligence that will help you to deliver those types of outcomes. This is right in line with value-based patient care that the government's been the leader in, and this is the new evolution of where it can take you for more personalized health care. Okay. I'm just going to talk about one of these things. Airlines and logistics has a lot going on, and particularly I'm going to talk a little bit about assistance. So things like Kayak you can use with Google Assistant. United has an Alexa app. I think it's KLM had something on Facebook Messenger. So this is all things that people are experimenting. How can you answer routine questions and make it more accessible? And quite frankly, they've gotten mixed results from it. I kind of read some of the reviews of how they're doing, and they're really answering very basic questions. What's the flight status? How do I make a ticket change? Things like that. They're not asking in an emergency where there's a lot of canceled flights to reschedule all your flights. So the point is that this is also something I know I hear a lot from government agencies. How do I get more involved with digital assistants? How can I use conversational IVRs? I want to have an Alexa-like experience. But you can't just jump right in. You're not going to file your tax return tomorrow using Alexa, but you can ask some basic questions. what is the day this year that taxes are due? Is it April 15th or is it April 17th like we had this past year? So I encourage everyone to try and get out there and experiment with these different technologies, and you'll find that you start learning and get survey data, understand where your customers are willing to accept it before you try and have a big bang theory to have your primary mission of your agency handled by these types of technologies. Okay, so in conclusion, totally agree with what they said before, the citizen journey, and look at what is that journey. I think at this point, not only can you look for where there's challenges and highlights in a journey, but you can start to reimagine it. So how can that be different? As I said, combining location-based services with digital services. So how can you transform that journey? You use AI software and analytics, but most important is you probably need some different skills than what you have today. So that was something that I know that they talked about, but where's your UX designers? Where's your data scientists? Things that were not, people that were not necessarily important perhaps in the past, have skills in human-centered design. Is going to be very important. You can't just measure what your journey is. You have to have the right skill set to be able to implement a new vision. Do I have any questions?